From various leaders in the country, how young people are using technology to harvest water, and it spots a very interesting story by Mwendwa on Kipchoge in Berlin. That and more coming up shortly, but first, let's have the highlights.
My competitor is an anarchist. I want to promise that you will not succeed again.
I will not allow anarchy to prevail in Kenya, President Ruto declares following Wednesday chaos.
Tumepoteza mali nyingi sana, kadri ya inaweza fika tu kwa expressway nusu bilioni ya pesa za Kenya.
Vandalized expressway to cost 700 million shillings, with the operator giving the government 1 month to pay for the damages. Azimio calls for unconditional release of arrested supporters as it calls for another round of protests next week. And zigzagging payoff, matatu driver and conductor jailed for a Welcome. Now, we would like to hear from you. Remember, you can send us your comments on our social media pages and also feedback on tonight's bulletin and anything else you would like us to cover for you on KBC Channel 1. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My assistant today helping with the sign language is Brian Muraru. Now, President William Ruto says his government will not allow Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga to engage in activities that will lead to further loss of lives and destruction of properties in the country. The president, who spoke while in Tharaka the county, likened Odinga's protest call as an act of anarchy, saying that the demonstrations are only meant to derail the government from delivering on its promise to the people of Kenya.
In the wake of the trail of destruction left behind following the Azimio la Umoja-led protests Wednesday, President William Ruto, who was in Tharaka Nithi and Kitui counties, condemned the protests. The head of state issued a stern warning to the opposition leader Raila Odinga, saying that he will not allow him to drive the country to a destructive path.
Unapanga fujo, unapanga wa Kenya waharibu mali. Ati kwa sababu wewe umeshindwa. Ulishindwa, umeshindwa, utashindwa. Sasa jipange kutoka hapa. Ama namna gani? Yes, because my competitor is an anarchist. I want to promise that you will not succeed again.
President Ruto saying that Odinga had a history of causing disruption since the Moi era, something that his government will not condone.
Na hawa majamaa mimi nawajua. Na nawaelewa sana. Na ndio kwa sababu niliwanyorosha.
The head of state saying that the government was well on course in stabilizing the economy to provide opportunities for the youth, who he noted are being used to cause chaos.
Nimkalie ngumu. Mnasema nimkalie ngumu. Hiyo ni amri. Mnajua sasa nyinyi ndio mmeniajiri. Na tumeongea na vijana na wale viongozi wengine tukakubaliana kwamba we shall not allow maandamano ya Azimio katika Tharaka Nithi.
Jana maandamano yalipofanyika, katika wale wakubali wameweza kupoteza biashara na watalii wameweza kurudi kwao.
Unapofanya kazi yako usisumbuliwe na mambo ya maandamano.
Nancy Okware, Prime Edition.
The government has banned any further protest in the country, condemning the loss of lives and destruction of properties witnessed following the opposition-led demonstration on Wednesday. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki termed yesterday's demonstration as economic sabotage that can no longer be President Rigathi Gachagua has termed those leading the demonstrations as people who have no interest in the lives of Kenyans and have no regard for human rights.
Just a day after the opposition-led demonstrations that paralyzed many businesses, caused fatalities and left scores injured, Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has fired back at the opposition for the mass destruction of property.
Kutoka sasa katika nchi ya Kenya hakutakuwa na maandamano na vurugu tena, na tutakubali mtu yeyote, na ule anafikiri ni mchezo ajaribu.
Banning any further demonstrations, Kindiki termed the protest acts of hooliganism, lawlessness and a recipe for anarchy.
Hatuwezi kukubali nchi yetu isambaratike tukiangalia kwa macho, na ijalishi ni mwanasiasa gani ambaye anahusika.
Security officers have also been directed to deal firmly with individuals who directly or indirectly orchestrate or finance violent protest.
Maafisa wetu wa usalama, gangare na musicheke na wahalifu. Don't joke with criminals. Deal with criminals firmly and without mercy.
Also condemning the protest, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua labeled leaders leading the protest as people who have no interest in the country and have no regard for human rights.
Ati unapanga kila siku watu unawawa, kila siku watu unawawa, mali ya watu inaharibiwa, wewe hakuna kazi unafanya. Umechukua vijana wetu wa hiyo criminal gang inaongozwa na hiyo mtu, unawatumia na walipa pesa kidogo.
Gachagua called on leaders in the country to re-examine themselves and cease from taking action that will plunge the country into chaos. He also called upon Kenyans to exercise patience, reiterating that the government is working around the clock to restore the economy. Parsai Frederick, Prime Edition.
Now, Azimio La Umoja Coalition are calling for the unconditional release of those arrested during Wednesday's protest in part of the country. The opposition leaders say that they will observe 5 days of mourning in honor of those who died during the demonstrations before resuming protests on Wednesday next week.
Opposition leaders have faulted police officers for alleged use of excessive force in handling protesters during Wednesday's demonstrations. In a press briefing, the leaders say they will institute criminal proceedings against individual police officers and their commanders.
We appeal to Kenyans to resort to citizen journalism and film state officers, including police and politicians, who in the course of duty abuse and brutalize their fellow citizens.
The coalition says they will halt the protests for the next 5 days to mourn and condole with the families of the victims.
Tumetangaza siku 5 ya maombolezi kwa wale watu wetu ambao wamekufa na wale ambao wamepata majeraha. Kwa hivyo siku 5 hizo hakuna chochote kitafanyika.
With Mavoko MP Patrick Makau and former Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya said to be in police custody, they have called for their unconditional release alongside all those arrested during the protests.
Na ukiona kama wanasema tumefanya maovu, tumekiuka sheria, tuko tayari kushikwa na kupelekwa mahakamani.
Additionally, they have maintained they will not relent in their push to have the government repeal.
Lakini tumesema Jumatano ijao tena Kenya yote watajumuika. Kutakuwa na kamkunji nyingine Jumatano ijayo.
Meanwhile, religious leaders under the Ufungamano Joint Forum of Religious Organizations are calling for caution in the ongoing debate on the Finance Act and the demonstrations organized by the opposition.
That bill does not favor the ordinary man, for whom we are actually speaking in this statement.
And coming out and telling people that it's not good, do not even go well with the Kenyans, because they failed us on what we are expecting them to do for us.
John Jacob Curia, Prime Edition.
United Democratic Alliance leaders say they have embarked on collecting evidence to have the sponsors and perpetrators of violence during the Azimio-led demonstration face trial at the International Criminal Court. Led by United Democratic Alliance chairperson Cecily Mbarire, the leaders are also calling on security apparatus to take decisive action to protect the lives and property of Kenyans. This as they condemned the violence that resulted in the death and destruction witnessed on Wednesday.
Na wananchi watukufu, karibuni sana.
The protest resulted in the following. 1, 9 lives were lost in Mlolongo and Kitengela. 2, destruction and looting of Eastmart and Quickmart supermarkets in Kitengela and Mlolongo. 3, attack on the Kitengela.
Kuruhusu mambo haya iendelee. Tumekuwa very tolerant, tumeweza ongea, lakini sasa tumepanga, tukasema kwamba ni lazima tusaidie wanabiashara wetu ambao biashara yao inaharibiwa kule Kitengela na nchi yote. Ni lazima tusaidie wale vijana ambao wanapoteza maisha, na tumeweka mikakati ya kutosha kuhakikisha jambo jana halitafanyika tena.
How are you dealing with economic challenges to the ordinary mwananchi by stopping that mwananchi from going around their day-to-day hustles through this campaign of economic sabotage and anarchy? How does the destruction of our economic activities witnessed yesterday and the days before deal with the cost of living?
We have documented each and every death, each and every destruction, and in fullness of time we are writing to ICC to ensure, because Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta are culprits and perpetrators, should have good customers of ICC.
The renovation of the vandalized section of the Nairobi Expressway will cost taxpayers over 700 million shillings. Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen says that the model has given the government 1 month to pay the damages or face legal action. The 700 and Syokimau exit points were vandalized yesterday by rowdy.
This was since yesterday at the Mlolongo exit point of the Nairobi Expressway. Hundreds of rowdy protesters descended on the highway, vandalizing the road furniture, ticketing machines and other equipment. This led to the suspension of services between the Mlolongo and Syokimau exit points. And because of these damages, the public will cough up to 707 million shillings to cater for the repairs and missed revenue.
The damage only done on the expressway could be anything up to, for that short period of time, could be anything up to $5 million.
The government says it will institute legal actions against the organizers of yesterday's demonstrations. The amount should be paid within 28 days, according to the highway operator, Moja Expressway.
Citizens who are saying we want to reduce the cost of living are the same ones who are going to pay. The government of Kenya is going to pay using taxpayer money for what has happened yesterday. Somebody that organized violence at this magnitude, well organized, came with matchboxes together with machetes and everything to cut wires. These people were properly organized. And now it calls upon us to review our security requirements on very strategic installations like the expressway.
This comes even as the Transport CS announced that public service vehicles will now be allowed this year.
We are now opening it for PSV vehicles that want to use this route, and we want to make sure that we support this infrastructure.
The development comes as Kenya Railways suspended its train services along the Syokimau-Lukenya route, and trains attacked by rowdy protesters yesterday evening and today morning. Benson Droba reporting for Prime Edition.
It's time for our fast break, but when we come back, I will be giving you more stories on the business side.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above. Cheza Loto Moto.
The construction industry in Kenya is undergoing through a crisis of confidence. The industry operates under the 1968 Building Code. This is expected to change once the Building Code 2023 is enacted.
I see a construction industry that is safe, and I see a construction industry that is of very high quality and will serve the needs of the people of Kenya. That is what I see with this code taking effect once it is approved by the National Assembly.
This week on Inside Government, we talk to the Executive Director at the He'll be taking us through this document and helping understand the contents therein. Watch the conversation right here on KBC Channel 1 with me, O'Brien Kimani.
Polisi walipokuja kwako katoroka. Na ndio inafanya unanileta mahakama sababu we ni muizi. Yes. Utake jolekane. I want to report him. Yes. He's a thief.
Yes, he is. Lakini kwa even secretary of thief.
Ama kwa party mbaya ama kwa party kafla binvu. Kuna hao wachama wa kutembeshanga hizi makaratasi za atufatai.
Ukampatia Sungura pesa ngapi?
Nikampatia 800,000.
800,000.
Exactly.
Kwa Sungura.
Cash money.
Hapa unaona Sungura?
Hakuna.
Wewe, hiyo chura baya wewe iko nayo. Wewe kotoa hiyo pesa yote wapi? Baya kabisa. Na try. Mimi koweka wewe ndani.
Welcome back. Two families from Tulule area in Narok East Sub-County are crying for justice after their kin was allegedly killed and body dumped at Kedong Ranch at the border of Narok and Nakuru counties by unknown people. The two deceased women were reported missing since Saturday after they traveled in Naisoya area in Narok North.
The mood has engulfed two families from Tulele area in Narok East Sub-County after their kin went missing since Saturday. However, relatives to communicate to them were futile as their phones had been switched off.
Tulikuwa tunataka kumpigia tukiinquire chakula yenye tungekula that day. Lakini when we called her, alitupatia response akatuambia na tutafute another option kwa the shop that we always take things. Na hivyo ndo simu yake akakata immediately. At around 5 nikampigia twice, there was no response.
Ilikuwa around tuliongea nao mpaka about saa 6 mchana wakiwa pale graduation, wakatoka wakanipigia simu saa 8 wametoka na wameenda.
This prompted the family to report the matter to the police before the bodies were discovered at Kedong Ranch near Satellite.
Niliona wakati alitolewa miguu ilikuwa kichwa ile.
Serikali, chief wa area, serikali yetu tafadhali haki itendeke.
Naomba yeyote ambaye ako na anaweza kutupasha habari zaidi ili kusaidia katika uchunguzi tuweze kujua namna walivyouawa, aweze kujitokeza na kuandikisha taarifa.
Our condolences to the families. Now, a Milimani court has jailed a public service vehicle driver and his conductor for 8 months in prison and their driving licenses cancelled for 2 years for endangering lives. And Senior Principal Magistrate Martha Nanzushi has also ordered them to go back to driving schools after the 8 months jail term.
This is the video that landed the duo behind bars. On the 9th of July 2023, Charles 10 a.m. at Thika, Garissa Road, driving recklessly the minibus KDM 001J in a zigzag manner dangerous to the public. He is also accused of permitting passengers to hang dangerously on the motor vehicle. Charles, who faces another count of driving a defective PSV, was slapped with an 8-month custodial sentence.
To that, I'm not going to give you a fine. I am giving you a custodial sentence. Custodial means you're going to go to remand. Taenda jela kwa muda ya miezi ngapi? 8.
His conductor Amos Nderitu will also serve the same sentence for allowing passengers to hang on the vehicle, yet he is the gatekeeper.
Even the PSV is cancelled, both the driving license and the PSV.
They are pleased to be given cash bail or bond or dismissed by the court.
Na mimi mwenyewe nimejitolea kama mzalendo mwema kuwa kama kielezo kwa madriver wengine.
Mko nataka kumtoa kwa nyumba aende atafutie mtoto. Sasa itabidi atoke kwa nyumba aende atafutie mtoto.
Senior Principal Magistrate Martha Nanzushi said it will serve as a lesson to PSV operators. For Prime Edition from Milimani Law Courts, I'm Ruth Wamboy.
Thank you, Ruth, for that report. Head of Public Service, Felix Koskei, has warned public servants against involving themselves in any form of corruption, saying those found culpable will face full force of the law. Speaking during a roundtable with heads of procurement and supplies chain management in Nairobi, Koskei said corruption towards attaining development in the country. Koskei reiterated Kenya Kwanza's commitment in weeding out corrupt elements, no matter.
I want us to craft a strategy, a methodology together, isn't it? So that we fight this thing together. So that we kill this thing before it consumes us. Because this country has to turn. From one institution to another one. When corruption ravages an institution, you quickly start applying, running away from that institution to the other one. It is not going to be possible. Let us fight together. You can get a political class interfering. You can get even some contractors and all those players around it, trying to find ways of ensuring that they insulate this game, because that is where they get most. But this time round, let me assure you that the president is very clear that there are no calls from above.
A section of religious leaders drawn from the Pentecostal churches has dismissed the proposal for the clerics to have professional qualifications, but instead suggested the requirements should be based on experience. Appearing before the Mutava Musimi-led legal and regulatory framework governing religious organization task force, the leaders further opposed the proposal for an umbrella body to regulate religious institutions, claiming it contravenes the Constitution.
Muslims and people of other religious groups, religious leaders and other stakeholders on what they think should be done in matters of relationship between the state and religious groups.
Tutakubaliana ikiwa wataweka mapendekezo yetu yale tumewapatia, tutakubaliana. Lakini wakilete pendekezo zingine ambazo ni kinyume na mapendekezo yetu, hatutakubaliana. Tutakuwa huru kwenda kotini ili tuombe msaada kwa koti ili haki yetu isikize.
Tungewaomba tu wapeleke ripoti vile wameipokea.
Kuwe na act of parliament au sheria ambayo itapitishwa kule bungeni kwetu ambayo itaestablish registrar wa makanisa, msajili wa makanisa awe ni independent ambayo amejitegemea. Kuwe na kama miungano isiyozidi 5, na hiyo itasaidia sana kuwe kwamba sio watu wengi, kila mtu hajitegemei mwenyewe.
There's a looming diplomatic tiff between Kenya and the Italian government over the implementation of the agreement of the Luigi Broglia for the National Assembly's Committee on the Implementation. Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale says the center, which sits on 3.5 acres of land, belongs to the military and has been operating without involving the Kenyan Space Agency. As Abdiziz Hashim reports, the cabinet is considering cancellation of the agreement if the Italian Space Agency does not agree to the terms set out by the ministry.
Broglio Malindi Space Center is a subject of controversy between the Kenyan government and their Italian counterparts over the operations of the facility.
The Italian government has operated the Malindi Space Center for 60 years now, and despite our bilateral agreements and clear deliverables, our partners have not been genuine and have instead resorted to tokenism and time-delaying tactics in the implementation of this agreement passed by both cabinet and this house.
This, according to the has been precipitated by the lack of transparency from the Italian Space Agency that has been operating in the facility for the last 60 years.
What risk do we have, diplomatic risk would we have with the Italian government, considering we have a number of nationals here, a number of investments?
So it is in the interest of the Italian government to come quickly and fix this problem on behalf of the Italian Space Agency.
Appearing before the National Assembly's Committee on Implementation, the CS noted the center, which sits on a 3.5 hectares of land belonging to the military, has been operating without involving the Kenyan Space Agency and not paying their dues. Furthermore, Duale has confirmed that the cabinet has given him the green light to cancel the agreement between the two nations if the ministry's demands are not met.
This is the position I am giving you, is the position of the government of Kenya. This is a cabinet position. So nobody else will give you another direction.
We will ask our legal community, our legal counsel, to highlight those agreements if they don't favor the people of Kenya. The sovereign parliament of the people of Kenya has the power to even withdraw them.
The Malindi Center was established in 1962, sounding rockets and archive satellite data.
Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale has vowed not to visit Rome despite being invited numerously. This as the committee led by Hilary Koskei plans to visit the site next month. Abdiaziz Hashim from Parliament Buildings, Prime Edition.
Late screening, diagnosis and inadequate human resource have been identified as leading catalysts to deaths resulting from cancer. Stakeholders in the health sector are calling for increased sensitization on cancer alongside investment to address this challenge. In Kenya, 42,000 cancer cases and 17,000 cancer-related deaths are reported every year. To chart the way forward on how to deal with the disease, the Ministry of Health, through the National Cancer Control Program, will launch the 3rd National Cancer Control Strategy on Friday.
Look, these are the dangers of smoking. Rather than us waiting till the client present to us. So those are some of the things we are envisaging to do, and they are very well addressed in the strategic plan.
You need to screen for breast cancer, and mammography screening needs to be done from the level 4, level 5 facilities. So we need to improve. We are going to work together with our other programs within the ministry, so that even as the primary care networks are being established, we have the diagnostic infrastructure.
Mbiu ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo, na jambo ni KRA Roadshow kaunti ya Nairobi kuanzia Alhamisi tarehe 13 hadi Jumamosi tarehe 15 mwezi huu. Ni roadshow kuhusu e-TIMS, mfumo unaopatikana wezesha kufile returns za VAT kwa haraka na nywe. Alhamisi tarehe 13, msafara huo utakuwa Thika Road, maeneo ya Kangundo Road, Donholm, Mwiki, Kasarani, Roysambu, Githurai, Kahawa West na Zimmerman. Ijumaa tarehe 14 ni zamu ya Islandos, maeneo ya Pumwani, Juja Road, Isili, Shauri Moyo, Majengo, Bahati, Kariobangi, Fedha, Pipeline, Kayole na Dandora. Na Jumamosi tarehe 15 ni Westlands na Nairobi West kwenye mitaa ya Kangemi, Udhiru, Kinoo, Wangige, Kikuyu, Dagoretti, Satellite, Nairobi West, South C, South B, Ngong Road, Kibera, Karen, Ngong, Rongai. Usikose. KRA, tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
What do we actually regard as faith in God?
Cult will first of all present, it will bombard you with love. Cult will help her to identify a victim.
I was a gullible Christian, and I was desperate at that time as a woman, and I was ready to believe anything that will give me the solutions that I wanted.
One of the greatest things we must look at is that the breakup of society. Even where God is, there is also Satan, and there are other people who have nothing to do with God, nothing to do with Satan. They're just making money.
The law is the law. If you're not practicing the law, you are illegal. An illegal society is bound for cancellation.
Welcome back. It's now time for business. The development policy that will help new graduates easily transition to the job market. State Department of Labor and Skills Development, PS Geoffrey Kaituku, says institutions of higher learning will be required to align their curriculum with necessary that meets the demands of the digital economy. Trevor Ngeno has the details.
Data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicate that close to 2/3 of the 2.97 million jobless Kenyans have given up looking for work. This has, however, opened a new opportunity for the youth under the gig economy that has employed approximately 1.9 million Kenyans.
The statistics have it that, the digital economy is commanding the largest share of GDP growth in the country, and Kenya has been also mapped as a potential Silicon Valley in Africa. So what that means is that all these things are converging, and therefore it calls for us to start looking generally at the policy environment. How is the policy environment looking like to facilitate all these opportunities that are coming in?
We have a strategy of producing more skilled workers using our TVET institutions, our universities, and that will enable us to have, and also the surplus that we are going to have will go to other countries.
To meet the demands of the digital economy, the government says it's drafting a skills development policy that will compel tertiary institutions to equip learners with new skills to bridge the gap and enable new graduates to take advantage of the opportunities provided by online jobs.
This is part of the skills development policy that we are talking about. We want to ensure that there is a pipeline of skilled workers. And this pipeline, the source of these workers will be our TVET institutions and also our universities, ensuring that the curriculum that we have is able to equip the young people with the kind of skills required.
The HR practices
and a lot of things that we were doing as HR professionals, it has been automated, whether it was leave planning, recruitment, performance management, strategy development. So our focus now is more on the design thinking and being proactive of coming up with the policies in terms of updating them, in terms of introducing regulations within the institutions to now align with the new ways of working.
To address unemployment, the ministry is to ensure mutual recognition of certificates between Kenya and other countries.
If we are able to match our qualifications, to equate them to foreign qualifications, then our young people will not face the kind of problem that we have today, where sometimes you don't get a job because a certain company or a certain country doesn't think you have the right qualification for it.
Kaituko spoke during a meeting bringing together HR practitioners, company boards and organizations to explore challenges and opportunities faced by professionals in the modern workforce. As the government, through the State Department of Labor and Skills Development, moves to revolutionize talent management in organizations, and HR practitioners quick to adapt digital strategies will be better placed to attract and retain top talent to drive innovation in the ever-evolving world of work. Trevor Ngindo for Prime Edition, Nairobi.
The Kenya Revenue Authority, in collaboration with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, have rolled out a public sensitization exercise to create awareness about the transmission of electronic invoices. This is through a roadshow that was flagged off today morning by KRA Acting Commissioner for the Domestic Taxes, David Mwangi, to sensitize Kenyans on electronic tax invoice management system.
It was Pomb and Kala as Kenya Revenue Authority, in collaboration with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, flagged off a roadshow about electronic invoices. During the roadshow that began in Nairobi County with plans to take the caravan to other areas outside the capital city, good entertainment is on offer, coupled with a target message about electronic invoices. The introduction of electronic tax invoice management system, ETIMS, compliance and increasing tax revenue.
We came with this product of ETIMS. One, we realized there are unscrupulous traders who for VAT, and we did not have visibility because registration for VAT is online. And so they were generating invoices without selling any products.
The acting commissioner in charge of domestic taxes says the latest upgrade will streamline the process of managing tax invoices, making it easier and more efficient for taxpayers to comply.
There is the benefit of having every transaction of yours recorded at KRA. So if eventually your liability ends up in a credit, meaning you are due for a refund, then it will be faster for KRA to verify such refund.
Mwangi says the new system is aimed at minimizing fiscal fraud and increasing tax compliance.
Something which has been launched, and I feel it's a good perspective in terms of a common mwananchi, in terms of the small businesses.
The KRA KBC roadshow is part of the government's campaign, which seeks sensitizing citizens on the need of tax compliance as the government pushes for an increase in collection of revenue. Reporting for Channel 1 from Nairobi, my name is Frederick Mwoki.
We'll be on the lookout for the roadshow. Now, Kenya and Indonesia are in the process of crafting a preferential trade agreement aimed at deepening trade between the two nations. Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria says the partnership will help facilitate trade, minimize trade barriers, and promote a more favorable business environment between Nairobi and Jakarta. Kuria spoke during a meeting with the Indonesian Minister for Maritime and Investment Affairs, Luhut Binsar.
Two-way trade volumes between Kenya and Indonesia topped 28.2 billion shillings, with the trade heavily in favor of Jakarta, according to the Economic Survey of 2023. To close the yawning trade gap, Kenya and Indonesia are working on a preferential trade agreement in an attempt to balance trade. Trade and Investment Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria says the two countries have agreed to ramp up investments that will assist Kenya attain self-sufficiency in edible oils through large-scale farming of palm oil, sunflower oil, and soya beans.
On the issue of edible oils, again, I know we have got companies here, several companies from Indonesia, to help us to see how can we be able to have a complete value chain on edible oils. Kenya has the potential to be self-sufficient in edible oils. And Indonesia is a unique country. Indonesia has an option of just exporting to us a finished product of edible oil.
The Indonesian delegation, led by Minister for Maritime and Investment Affairs, retired General Luhut Binsar, says the two countries have formed a joint technical committee to spearhead a South-to-South collaboration that will allow both countries to promote value addition within their respective countries.
Africa, as a developing country like Indonesia, if we establish a good collaboration, I think we can move together for better than what we have today.
On green energy, Nairobi and Jakarta have agreed to work together to accelerate Kenya's geothermal capacity that will aid in reducing the cost of power.
Today, we do know that we dispatch geothermal in this country at about, I need to check the numbers in Indonesia, but at the moment we've developed an MOU. We'll be working with Patsamina together with Mazda to see how to accelerate our geothermal resource, which, like I said, dispatches at 7 cents US. And you do know that the renewable energy in solar and wind is great.
Kenya's journey towards becoming a top preferred investment destination remains unmatched, even as shareholders call on its government to continue lobbying for more opportunities. Reporting for Prime Edition, Mukami.
Thank you, Nduta Mukami, for that report. The government is accelerating repatriation of over 30,000 artifacts belonging to the Mijikenda that were shipped away during Museums of Kenya has handed over 88 of the reclaimed artifacts, popularly known as Vigango, to Kaya elders in Kaya Kauma, Kilifi County. Here is June Karisa with the details.
Kaya Kauma in Kilifi County is one of 10 fortified sacred villages that have paid homage to the heritage of the Mijikenda community. Today was a momentous occasion for residents as they readied to receive 10 of 88 repatriated artifacts from the United Commonly known as Vigango, the wooden artifacts convey an ancestral heritage. The procession will begin at the Kaya's entrance with dancers chanting appeasing songs to welcome them home. At the entrance of the homestead, Kaya elders mount a ritual in their honor. Here, flour is mixed with water and sprinkled as food. Water and traditional brews follows before 2 chickens and a black goat are slaughtered to conclude their feeding. As soon as the prayers are concluded, a heavy downpour is witnessed, a sign that the ancestors are pleased with the occasion. The guests then break into song and dance to welcome the Vigango home. Here, Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage Cabinet Secretary Penina Malonza pledged to fast-track compensation of the community as well as the repatriation of the over 30,000 artifacts.
Hii sio mwisho wa Vigango ambazo zinazorudishwa. Zingine zitaletwa na zitazidi kuletwa.
We will work together with the museums in US and in other countries so that we can also build a home, a museum in this kaya for these vigagos that we have brought here.
Kilifi County Governor Gideon Mung'aro committed to pump resources for the revitalization of the heritage sites for economic gains.
As much as we are not talking of compensation demand, but we are talking of collaboration between the museums where these artifacts are coming from, and ourselves, the county, the national government, so that we create spaces and museums also for these artifacts for the community here.
Nitamsaidia gavana kufungua mahali hapa, watalii waje kwa wingi ili mfaidike.
Today marks a moment. Their only hope is that more artifacts such as this to the Mijikenda community. From Kayakauma in Kilifi County, I'm Juni Karisa Mbele.
The government has launched a 15.9 billion Kenya shillings project to cushion pastoralists in 21 counties in the arid and semi-arid lands against vagaries of climate change. The launch of the de-risking, inclusion and value enhancement in Laikipia County, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said insurance is critical in reducing losses to disasters.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the de-risking, inclusion and value enhancement project is complementary to the country's recovery and resilience plans of increasing income of the over 13 million pastoralists. This is by reducing vulnerability to poverty and ultimately the year-in-year and mitigation measures.
Na kwa hivyo katika ile mpango wa PPP ya kutafuta wekezaji walete nauli hapa Kenya, tuweze kuweka mabawa ya kutosha na boreholes ya kuleta maji katika zile sehemu za ukame katika Jamhuri ya Kenya, ndio tuongeze mazao yetu.
The project, which has been on pilot since November 2022, has seen over 17,000 pastoralists in the counties of Wajir, Garissa, Tana River and Samburu register for the insurance plan. Under the pilot plan, farmers were paid 20% premium, while the government remitted a subsidy of 80%.
In ASAL counties, Kenya shillings 150 billion subsector is a source of up to 95% of the family income. While DRIVE is a regional project implemented under the Horn of Africa initiative, targeting 6 counties, our government welcomes this program. It is a shot in the arm to the bottom-up economic transformation agenda.
He says the livestock subsector grossly underperformed in exports, with shipment of meat currently earning Kenya 4 billion shillings, despite having potential of 300 billion shillings.
Cumulatively, we lost over 1.5 billion US dollars in the death of about 2.5 million wildlife and livestock. More than 4.2 million people faced acute starvation. Most of those affected were in ASAL's areas.
Rigathi said the government has prioritized promoting development to reduce and gradually end dependence on aid.
Kenya is in the process of abolishing visa requirements for citizens of all Africa Union member states. Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Dr. Alfred Mutua says the move is part of the efforts to remove trade barriers within Africa to enhance trade and movement across the continent. Mutua, who spoke at the AU conference, said its economic potential by opening up borders so as to increase intra-continental trade.
To unlock our collective socio-economic potential, and it is critical that we accelerate our integration and create synergies and build our comparative advantages that allows us to freely trade with each other. We have to consolidate our markets and trade more with each other and allow free movement of people across borders. Kenya is committed to progressively, and we are moving very fast by the end of this year, to abolish visas to citizens from African Union member states to make it easier to invest and do business in Kenya and across the continent.
Kenyan water companies will be able to raise funds through the capital markets after the Kenya Association of Stockbrokers and Investment Banks, KASIB, and the Eldoret Water signed a memorandum of understanding for alternative financing options. Under the deal, water companies will be offered a platform that will enable them to secure funds to develop and improve water infrastructure.
The MOU today is a significant engagement between the Kenya capital markets and the government that will open new channels in Kenya water companies to raise money through the capital markets. The MOU will enable elders to secure funds to provide better services for their residents, to develop and improve water infrastructure, including water treatment plants, sewer management systems, and distribution networks.
I'm happy that Eldoret Water is the pioneer in terms of development of an Eldoret Water and or green bond. One of the biggest challenges for our advancements is actually finance. Currently, we want to do a lot of projects. I'm happy that already the government is evaluating a contractor who has been found to develop the Two Rivers Dam, which is going to give us 74,000 cubic meters.
Well, we take a short break, but when we come back, I will be telling you about innovation when it comes to water harvesting.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above. Cheza Loto Moto.
The construction industry in Kenya is undergoing through a crisis of confidence. The industry operates under the 1968 Building Code. This is expected to change 2023 is enacted.
I see a construction industry that is safe, and I see a construction industry that is of very high quality and will serve the needs of the people of Kenya. That is what I see with this code taking effect once it is approved by the National Assembly.
This week on Inside Government, we talk to the Executive Director at the National Construction Authority, Engineer Maurice Okech. He'll be taking us through this document and helping understand the contents therein. Watch the conversation right here on KBC Channel 1 with me, O'Brien Kimani.
Welcome back. She wakes up at 3 a.m. to start her day behind a wheel of a 33-seater matatu plying a Nairobi route. Currently, she is driving one of the pioneer electronic-powered matatus. Here is the story of 44-year-old Victoria Kaloki as filed by Brian Onsumu.
She is not just a matatu driver. She's a story that symbolizes resilience and determination. And with the introduction of electric matatus, she is, without a doubt, the first among equals.
Shukuru kwanza Sako, Embasava Sako, kwa kunikubali tu, wakanipeleka mpaka training, nikatrainiwa kuendesha hizo gari.
44-year-old Victoria Kaloki has been at it this way for the last 7 years.
Tukaanza kazi Korwai. sikujua kama customer nimebeba ndiye ataja nirusha mbele nifike pale niko.
As she grew up, life was never welcoming to Victoria. Now a single mother of 2 daughters and who was born and raised in Makueni County. Victoria's hope in education was cut short with the sudden death of her father upon completing primary school studies in 1996, Mangaoni Primary School.
Wewe ndo unaangaliwa na watoto, wewe ndo unaangaliwa na mzazi. Mimi niko na mzazi mmoja, babangu aliaga, nilibaki na mama. So kazi naamka saa 9:30 ndio niweze kujiprepare, niende pale gari na lara, nichukue hiyo gari by 5 inavaa ikuwe sasa ishaanza kujua inafanya kazi, inaanza kazi namna gani.
In the year 2000, Victoria left her rural home for Nairobi. In 2014, she left for Qatar.
Nikapata kazi Qatar kama ya kilina. Wenye nilienda nikaenda nikakonjeka, nikarudi Kenya. Sikukaa sana, nikaa tu 1 month.
It was after returning to Kenya that Victoria got her hands and feet in the matatu industry.
Nikiwa huko, kuna msichana alienda kazi ya kuendesha gari, driver. Alikuwa analipwa pesa mzuri. Hapo ndio nikakuwa natamani, nikasema hata mimi ninataka kuwa driver.
By the time year 2016 was giving way to 2017, Victoria officially joined the matatu industry in Nairobi as a driver.
Nayo ikafika ni wakati wa watu wa gari za stima wamekuja kwa sako kuja kujudizi gari zao kwa sako kama wanaweza kubali. Ile ya ule customer na ya hii ikaingiana. Mimi Victoria, Mungu wangu akafika siku hiyo.
But how is it for a woman working in the otherwise male-dominated matatu industry?
Na tukiwa bado kwa kazi hiyo tu, wanaume kama wenye tunafanya nao, tuseme tu ni wadogo wenye wanakubali. Wengine majority wako kwa kudharau, wanakutusi, hata kukuchapa ni rahisi.
With the shift, electric powered engine has come with its benefits.
Kwanza gari ya diesel ikikaka ikiseka iko na ile mingi sana. Kama driver sasa tuseme kwa hiyo kiti yake imechapa hii stima imeichapa kabisa, kiti yake ni very comfortable na uchoki makumi kwa hii gari ya stima. Lakini ya diesel kigonga 3 siku 3 ulichoka kitambo.
Is it a job that Victoria will recommend to fellow women?
Mama, wajitoe wakuje kwa barabara, tukue wengi, tusaidiane. Unajua nikiona mama mwenzangu ako kazi kama hiyo, hata nakuwa tuna nguvu.
Every time Victoria wakes up to a feeling of quitting, she brushes off when she considers her responsibility as a single mom.
Hapa mimi nafikanga tuseme ikielekea saa 5, nalala saa 6, saa 6, saa 7, saa 8, saa 9:30 nishaamka.
Life has a single spark. Driving through a male-dominated occupation with resilience, patience and hard work, Victoria has managed to raise her 2 daughters. Above all, no human is... Reporting for KBC, Channel 1, Nairobi.
What an inspiring story. And here's another one in Laikipia County, one of the regions in Kenya classified as predominantly semi-arid, and this has led to the rise in adoption of water harvesting techniques and technology to alleviate the challenge of water scarcity. Tonight on reinventing mass water harvesting in Laikipia.
A lush green oasis of fruit and vegetables, engorged pawpaws and hovering branches of avocado trees, just an example of an expected bumper harvest. Patrick Miner's farm in Laikipia County has flourished to become a model in modern water harvesting techniques.
How much water can I get from my house? So I just started with a small tank of 3 of them.
Miner harvests over 4.4 million liters of surface rice, which he then stores in various storage vessels including water pans and underground tanks, in an elaborate but effective technique.
So we harvest water from the roof, it goes to the gutters, from the gutters it goes to the downtakes, from the downtakes it goes to the main line, which directs that water to the main water pan. Then from the storage now we lift it with the pump, which takes back to the filtration, it is filtered, and then from there it goes back to the farm through the drip system.
The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, estimates that 40% of the world's population is living in water-scarce regions. In Kenya, which has an annual supply of renewable fresh water below 1,000 cubic meters per capita, many farmers live in arid or semi-arid regions, which is why this model has become so successful that other farmers like James Kimani, a beneficiary of minor skills, are not looking back.
So because I had the greenhouse, so I had to get some plastic troughs that I use to make vertical gardens. Then I use those particular troughs as gutters to harvest water from the greenhouse.
The IT expert turned small-scale farmer says it hasn't been easy, given the capital required in farming. However, the technique has enabled him optimize water collection with this single greenhouse alone, harvesting between 23,000 and 30,000 liters of water. Both Maina and Kamau say water harvesting techniques help farmers reduce over-reliance on government for farm input solutions.
To make people understand things, they first resist a lot. And that's why I'm trying to become like an example to them. I do it, they see, and then they believe.
This practice has also enabled farmers realize their full potential. Alan Alco, Tech One.
German companies will sustain investments in the Chinese market as a means of maintaining a competitive edge and harnessing their full potential. German investment in China reached 2.57 billion, soaring 52.8% year-on-year. This and other stories making headlines across the globe.
The Chinese path to modernization will provide broader growth opportunities for German companies. The German Chamber of Commerce in China says more businesses plan to invest in China over the next 2 years. As mechanical equipment manufacturing is a key industry for China-German economic and trade cooperation, businesses on both sides are urged to further consolidate. Businesses on both sides are urged to further consolidate the existence cooperation foundation and tap cooperation potential in new fields such as green low carbon, digital economy and sustainable development. Meanwhile, demand for oil production in China will recover gradually this year from the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak, with a full year volume expected to be around 400 million metric tons. Transport oil demand in 2023 is expected to increase by 9.3% year-on-year and recover to pre-pandemic level, with the annual road travel index of residents expected to grow 25% and the air travel index by 50% this year. Gasoline demand in China will be 0.8% higher than that in 2019, and demand for diesel and kerosene will be around 98.8% and 95% of the 2019 level, respectively. China's crude oil supply has been growing steadily so far, with production reaching 87.7 million tons during the first 5 months.
Largest amount of oil reserves. Domestic oil production only meets the demand of China's 1.4.
Finally, the United Kingdom government has barely grown since 2019 before the pandemic. It shrunk by 0.1% in May, partly due to the extra bank holiday for the King's coronation, which meant there was fewer working day than normal. The rising cost of living and high interest rates have been squeezing households and businesses. The Bank of England has been pushing up interest, but this is having a knock-on effect on consumer borrowing costs and repayments for millions. The higher wages and larger profits seen in a growing economy also generate more money for the government in taxes.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stake zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Menopause is a very critical time in a woman's life, but it's often misunderstood.
I've had 1 or 2 cases whereby young girls of 16, 17 years, you know, having no periods at all. When you check their hormone levels, it's as if they are ladies who are 50, 60 years old.
When you think about your adrenal glands, they actually do also produce your stress hormones and so forth, from your cortisol to adrenaline. So you actually have to live a life that is very stress-free.
When they start having these symptoms, don't say, hiyo ni akina mama tu, hiyo ni ya wanawake. Try to take a step back and try to understand.
This Sunday at 6 p.m.
I need some air. This office looks... Sneaking into the office.
You want to ruin me and everything I've worked hard for.
Nick! What if Alice took it? She has it.
You better dig a grave for 2.
Joel stabbed my dad in the back.
Send it to me directly.
Unakumbuka you've been stabbed? It's about to get ugly. I'm floating. The doctors are coming back, and Dad isn't here.
Welcome back. Now, diversification to the conservation model is key in stemming cases of human-wildlife conflict that have been on the rise, fueled by climate change and a scramble for agricultural land. Regina Manyara engages the Ngeno Conservancy Director, Rai Tumcharo, on the benefits of environmental conservation and its impact on coexistence between humans and wildlife.
Disbursing compensation monies owed to victims of human-wildlife conflict. The question is, can conservation ease wildlife conflict? That's the conversation tonight, and we're joined by none other than of Ngeno Conservancy, a conservancy that has been in operations for the last 30 years. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
Paint a picture for us on how the landscape looks when it comes to matters
because of the drought, wildlife has been a menace to both the community, because the most animals come from the southwest and southeast. Now, it's interesting to know that according to the statistics, the ranches are holding more wildlife than even the parks.
Taita Taveta County in itself has the highest record of human-wildlife conflict. What, in your opinion, is driving this?
We've tried to ask ourselves why. But I think in the parks, they have been chased away by... So they found a refuge in our ranches and in the communities that border the ranches. Now, there have been so many cases of predation, so many cases of crop destruction by animals, buffaloes.
As a conservancy, how are you dealing with the issues of, scarcity of water, especially, and pasture?
We have enough land for the nation, for the wildlife. Yeah? The only thing problems mostly is the drought and water. Once we have these things in place and in abundance, I don't think we'll have this problem in the magnitude that we are talking of. So when it comes to land, we have enough land. The ranchers have 1 million acres. That is part of, I think, the 12% that the human land was allocated for. So with wildlife, I believe the 62% is enough for it.
Increased cases of, invasion of ranches, conservancies, and even national parks have hit the media waves, so to speak. How are you handling this in Taita Taveta?
But I believe that once those big dams are constructed, these will reduce the wildlife conflict. The only now problem is the drought. So again, we could have a solution. There's a lot of water in Taveta, Njoro Kubwa. So if authorities could bring this water to the ranches where it will flow freely, it will regenerate vegetation. And the animals only need vegetation and water. So if that can be done, I can assure you the human wildlife drastically.
Now let's talk about poaching, especially on game for meat. How is this a challenge here and how are you handling it?
I don't encourage that, but we have experienced that. But we have another partner called Wildlife Works. They have really been assisting in reducing the poaching. It was rampant then, but since they came in, they have assisted the ranchers to control the poaching. Yeah.
Climate change has been termed as one of the challenges that is fueling human-wildlife conflict. How are you adapting to climate change in regard to human-wildlife conflict?
The scarcity of pasture. Most of our land is barren. But if it could be regenerated, there will be enough for these animals. And the more they are, the better for us, because we are going conservancy, and conservancy is attracting so much funding from donors. So I believe our county will benefit, maybe more than any other county. First of all, forests. I think the climate change has all been brought about by the degradation and the rampant logging. So if we could join hands with the government in planting as many trees as possible. It takes about 5 to 10 years to mature. So I believe if we want to handle this situation for posterity, we need to really plant as many trees as possible.
The government began the compensation to victims of human-wildlife conflict this week. Is this money adequate to alleviate the impact that human-wildlife conflict had on
First of all, it is too little, too late. You can imagine some of the claims I'm seeing 2014, that means it's 9 years down the line. People have suffered injuries. Some of them have passed on. Some of them are maimed. I think the KWS and the government at large must reconsider that. Keep waiting for such benefits. If I say planted maize was eaten by the animals, then I wait for 9 years. That crop, remember, that crop was going to take me that year. So that year when I spent money doing the planting, I spent, it was so much. And I wait for 9 years to get that compensation. Honestly, it's not fair.
Ministry of Tourism, that is headed by Cabinet Secretary Penina Malonza, is seeking to introduce an insurance scheme to fast-track, claims made by persons who are victims of human-wildlife conflict. What is your take on this?
It's so good. One time I visited Masai Mara, and we were told that these people have an insurance policy on livestock. And I think they have really accepted and embraced conservancy, because at the end of the day, they know they don't lose everything. If they lose on this one side, there's something to benefit from. So, and I think even the animals accepted that, because you look at the elephants there, they are not as hostile as these. Because elephants or animals, generally animals in this area, they see a human being, they see an enemy. But in the other place, the animals are so friendly, because the community has come to understand that these are also partners in development.
Maybe you can elaborate when you talk about fencing or the cordoning off the communities. Exactly what do you mean?
Well, depending on how fast the electric fence is done, I think in the next 2-3 years we'll have a reduced level of the conflict between human and wildlife.
But then animal and wildlife activists would counter and say that animals should be left to use their animal corridors. What is your take on that? Because when you propose fencing, this is definitely going to hit some deadwinds.
What I mean, fencing between the community, because in the ranches, most ranches, people don't live there, apart from the workers, and very few people live there. These are the employees. But in the community, where these animals stray from the ranches to the community, looking for food, looking for water, that is where the biggest conflict is.
Do you think that the conservation way is a direction to go when you talk about matters of human-wildlife conflict?
All animals have also IQs. So if an elephant feels it has it is protected by a human being, it will end believing that this is a partner. But in our area, they are hunted for meat, bush meat, all animals, and then they are also hungry, so they go for that, for whatever that they can get from the community. And once the community sees the animals around, they try to repel them using all sorts of ammunition. Now, when this insurance scheme is finally brought to the community here, first the community will understand that after all, they are not going to lose everything the way they used to. They'll be compensated, and let that compensation follow as soon as possible, not the 9 years that victims are waiting for. that one will heavily alleviate that problem. Yeah.
What does the future portend for this particular ecosystem in light of climate change and increased cases of human-wildlife conflicts?
Makes the wildlife move out of the conservancies to the community is one, water, then pasture. If the government could build dams, last year I remember we were visited by the CS in tourism then. I think it was Mr. Kimtai. And we had quite a number of stakeholders meeting between the ranchers and the county government. We were promised that some dams big dams would be constructed in ranches, but this is yet to happen.
Recommendations going forward?
The community is not happy when KWS removed snake bites as there are some, even if you go to hospital right now, our hospital you won't miss a victim of snake bites. And some of these snakes are so poisonous that you end up losing a life or you end up being maimed completely. This is something that we still are asking ourselves, why? Why did they remove the snake bite compensation? Yet in Taita, and even you see, we live with elephants, and we know how to go away from them. But with the snakes, it's difficult because sometimes you even step on it without having seen it before. But with the other animals, you can meander your way, find your way, and leave that animal there. So I want to plead with KWS to reinstate the snake bite compensation.
Well, there you have it. Right Mcharo, one of the directors at Mgeno Conservancy right here in Taita Taveta County. And his take home is that humans and wildlife need to strike a balance and coexist for longevity and sustainability of both kinds. Channel 1.
Thank you, Regina, for that interview. That's a very interesting way, a conservation model that's quite interesting to ensure that animals and man can coexist. Well, that story marks the end of business. And in sports, I do have a surprise for you. A new news anchor with us in studio, Bernard Okumus. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Cynthia.
So tell me a little bit, what are we going to expect from you tonight? What do you have for us?
Yes, indeed. We have stories making headlines in the world of sports. This includes the national men's basketball team, which finals, right? And also the draw for the World Cup 2026 is out. I'll be telling you who will be playing Kenya, right?
Yes.
And also the world record holder, Eliud Kipchoge, is preparing for the September Berlin Marathon.
In Berlin, we're looking forward to that.
Yes.
Take it away, Bernard.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you so much for joining us on Primetime Edition Sports. I'm Bernard Okumu, and we begin with basketball, where the Kenya men's basketball team Morans has been bundled out of the ongoing FIBA African tournament in Angola after losing 46-55 to Morocco in the quarterfinals. The team had reached the quarterfinals after topping Group A ahead of Cote d'Ivoire and Gabon.
Morocco dominated the match from the first whistle, winning the first quarter 17-10. In the second quarter, the North Africans were unstoppable, winning the quarter 17-12. Morans came back stronger in the third quarter, which they comfortably won 15-9. Morocco were, however, back to their best, winning the fourth and final quarter 12-9 to win the match 55-46. Morans were hoping, having lost to the Democratic Republic of Congo in the final of the 2019 championship held in Mali. For Prime Edition, I'm Fred Njogu.
Well, the national boxing team hit squad has stepped up training ahead of the 2023 Africa Boxing Championship slated for 26th of July to 6th of August in Yaoundé, Cameroon. 23 boxers are currently in non-residential training at VMX Gym in Nairobi.
Mabondi 23 wanafanya mazoezi katika ukumbi wa
Well, we go over to athletics now, where reigning world marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge will head to this year's Berlin Marathon, slated for 24th of September, seeking an unprecedented fifth men's race win. Now, Ethiopia's Tigist Assefa will defend her title in the women's race.
Kipchoge improved his own world record by half a minute when winning last year's edition in 2 hours, 1 minute. The win followed his previous victories secured in the German capital in 2015, 2017 and 2018. Among Kipchoge's challengers will be his compatriot Amos Kipruto, the 2019 world bronze medalist who won last year's London Marathon. In the women's race, Assefa will go up against top athletes, including Kenya's Sheila Chepkirui, the Commonwealth Games 10,000 meters bronze medalist who finished 4th in the London Marathon in April before posting a personal best of 2 hours, 17 minutes and 29 seconds in Valencia in December. Chepkirui also won the Berlin Half Marathon in 2022 in a course record of 1 hour, 5 minutes and 2 seconds. For Prime Edition Sports, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
Football stakeholders in Embu County have embarked on an ambitious plan to improve the game of soccer and reduce cases of indiscipline. Speaking after a consultative meeting that brought together football stakeholders, Embu FKF Chairman Charles Njagi noted that they have resolved to train more referees and closely engage football officials and fans. He noted that once the fans get to understand the rules, cases of confrontation with match officials are expected to decline. Njagi said that the consultative meeting resolved to start a ward league that will identify and nurture talents from the grassroots. FKF Women Representative Helen Njeri challenged women to participate in referee courses to fill the existing gaps.
Weza kuanzisha ligi ambayo inaitwa ward leagues ambazo zitakuwa zikichezwa katika ward zetu za county. Ya pili pia tumekubaliana vile tutaorganize maneno ya training ya marifari ili tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba training marifari wetu wamekuwa capacity build ili waweze kuofficiate game zetu, na pia tumeambia timu zetu ziweze kutengeneza marogo na pia kuweza kufungua Facebook account.
Ningeomba kama kunao watu ambao wanaweza ongelelea mambo ya mental awareness, mambo ya family planning, anything about life, because football ni maisha yenyewe haswa. So ningeomba tuzidi kushikiliana, tuzidi kupeana moral na tuzidi kuja katika hii ligi kwa vile mpira wasichana iko na angle kubwa ya kugrow.
And to international news now, where Panama advanced to the CONCACAF Gold Cup final after beating USA 5-1 draw in regular and extra time. In the other semi-final, to reach its 11th CONCACAF Gold Cup final. The final will be played on Sunday in Inglewood, USA.
It is the most commonly played fixture in the history of the tournament. The 12th all-time meeting between the United States and Panama.
The USA national team fell to Panama 5-4 on penalty kicks after playing to a 1-1 draw in the 2023 CONCACAF Gold Cup semi-finals.
Anderson tries to get it, Busio clears. Carrasquilla launching forward, chance for Panama, it's Diaz, but it is offside.
It was the USA's 12th Gold Cup meeting with Panama in the competition.
Over the top, brilliant ball, Turner off his line, and Anderson!
Ivan Anderson gave Panama the lead in the 99th minute, while Jesus Ferreira equalized for the USA.
Over to Ferreira!
After regulation and extra time, the match went into penalties, which Panama won 5-4.
Carrasquilla! What a finish! And Panama on to the Gold Cup final!
The semi-final of the 2023 CONCACAF Gold Cup for the right to face either Panama or the United States in the final.
In the other semi-final, Mexico beat Jamaica 3-0 to reach its 11th CONCACAF Gold Cup final.
Gallardo Payson drives it in, center of the box! What a start for Mexico!
Henry Martin scored 80 seconds in to give the Mexicans a perfect start.
Second minute!
Midfielder Luis Chavez converted a free kick in the 30th minute to double the advantage.
It is Chavez! One of the goals of the tournament!
Roberto Alvarado added a goal in the 3rd minute of the second half stoppage time as Mexico advanced to play Panama on Sunday in Inglewood.
Gallardo centers! Exclamation point for Mexico! Roberto team will play for a trophy.
Well, and on that note of where CONCACAF Gold Cup final will be decided on Sunday with the Panama meeting Mexico is where we bring the curtains down on tonight's sports edition. I'm Bernardo Kumo. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much, Bernard, for that report. So, how was your first night?
It felt I was a little bit nervous, but excited at the same time and chuffed.
Well, that's it from us and the rest of the team. Remember, you can still send in your comments. We would love to hear from you. Timothy Mwangi from Kiriaini says that he did enjoy the story on harvesting water. We will definitely have more stories for you on tech every Thursday. From me and the rest of the team, we wish you a very good night.
Yes, and thank you so much for watching Channel 1 Sports tonight. I wish you a lovely night.
Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial *570# wakati wowote, siku yoyote.